My friends, I know you are having a wonderful time and you're eating your dinner and you're getting acquainted with new and old friends. Please try to find your seats again. We're going to get our program started again in just a moment or two. So please find your seats. Well, most of you are seated, but please find your seats. We're going to start our program in about a minute. Thank you so much. Waiting on a couple of my special guests to find their way in. I know it. I don't know. I don't understand. I want to let people talk. I want to let people talk until we... Huh?
They're in there. They're checking right now.
Okay. Well, I've decided to let Blake... until we're ready to start. My friends, let's begin the second half of our program. We want to be good stewards of your time. I know many of you are still eating, and I invite you to continue to eat. Oh, thank you for the... I think that's my friend Dave Richwine over there doing that. I appreciate that. Before we begin our second half, I would like to recognize a few people who've played very important roles in the history of Veterans Bridge Home. So 8 years ago, Cynthia Gilman, who's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Henry M. Jackson Foundation, made several visits to Charlotte to help Veterans Bridge Home develop its mission. We appreciate that. She also presented the case to the Foundation for the Carolinas, to the board there, for an extensive study and seed money to create an organization that holistically addresses the challenges of military transitions. So Cynthia wasn't able to join us tonight, but we really appreciate everything that she did. I would also like to recognize Mecklenburg County's manager, Dina Diorio, who is sitting here in the front. Stand up, Dina. Stand up. Over the last 2 years, thanks to Dina's leadership and the Board of County Commissioners, Veterans Bridge Home has increased its ability to reach out to more of our county's 50,000 veterans with human services and support, and we appreciate everything that Dina does. And I also want to recognize our former mayor, Richard Vinroot, who is in the room. Mayor Vinroot. I appreciate everything that you do for veterans and have done throughout the years. Thank you, Mayor Vinroot. It's always a pleasure to see you. And are there any other elected officials that I missed? Did I miss anyone? Did I miss anyone, Dina? Don't think so. I think I'm good. Okay. Charlotte is experiencing a period of sustained growth in our urban core that's attracting talent from across the country every day. We talked about the number. It's a moving target. What many may not know is that included in this talent influx is an extraordinary number of senior military officers who are making the Charlotte region their permanent home. And we are really glad to welcome them and to really call them our neighbors. One of these individuals is the 35th Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, General Jim Amos, tonight's honorary co-chair. Many of our honored guests are here thanks to the personal invitation of Jim and his lovely wife, Bonnie. I have it on good authority that the Commandant was intimately involved in tonight's events, from deciding name tag size to inviting our guest speaker. I have that on good authority. Please join me in welcoming General Jim Amos. What? A little birdie told me that.
But keep it up a little bit longer. I like it. Thank you, everybody. Actually, she was deathly serious about the name tag thing. Think how much, there's Tommy and Patty there. We had discussions about name tags. And, okay, who's going to have them? And we said the folks that are probably going to be new to this body, most of you know each other through business and having grown up in Charlotte or professionally, so you know each other. But what about us? Those of us that are some of us have moved to Charlotte that we haven't met everybody yet, and those of us that have come from the outside, that have come from across Carolinas and really outside the state, to come join us tonight. So we want to make sure people have some idea who they're talking to. And so we said, well, how about name tags? And I said, a great idea. Well, they had a name tag that was this big. And I said, no, that's not going to work. So we kind of went around, So I went from being the head of the Marine Corps to micromanaging name tags. And it's a hell of a lot harder than you think it is. I just want to go on record as having said that. I got to tell you what, I started to say, you have no idea how wonderful you look, except I've got those bright lights in my eyes. I have no idea what you look like. You could have taken your clothes off in the back there, and I would have no idea whether you're still in your tuxedo or not. But actually, everybody up front, you look terrific. So I'm glad the people in the back, you're back there for a reason, and I appreciate that. Look, this has been a year and a half in planning. It's been exciting. We've had we've had meetings, we've had breakfasts at Bank of America and U.S. Trust have hosted these things where we've tried to plan. You'd think this was the invasion of Iraq in 2003. I mean, Tommy Franks would have been proud for those of, that the only ones that are laughing in this thing are the folks that kind of persevered through that period of time while we were doing the planning for the invasion of Iraq. But you'd have thought it was that detailed. Because why? Because we didn't want to goon it up. Tommy and Patty talked about, we want this to be, there's lots of galas, there's lots of wonderful celebrations in Charlotte throughout the year, but we wanted this one to be the cream of the crop. We want this one to hit it off the top of the Richter scale. So how do you do that? And how do you bring business? How do you bring friends? How do you bring it all together? And I'll just tell you, I mean, I'm actually supposed to introduce Bill McRaven. I'll get to him in a minute. Don't worry about that. But I've got the microphone, and I never want to pass up a good opportunity to talk on a microphone. And all the Marine generals in the crowd are going, amen, brother, preach on. Preach on, preacher. But the heart and soul of this is Tommy and Patty Norman. And they brought it together. They brought all of us together. And I just want to say thank you. And they've been a real treat for Bonnie and I. We moved to Charlotte not quite 4 years ago, about 3.5 years ago. Our daughter, Jamie, and our son-in-law, Eric. Where are you, Jamie? You in the back, way back there? Oh, there you are. Okay. I can see Eric's got his tuxedo on. That's good. So we came to Charlotte. We needed a place to go. It sounds pathetic, doesn't it? You spend 42 years in the Marine Corps and you go, I don't have a place to go when I leave. So Charlotte was ours, and I distinctly remember when Bill McRaven and Bonnie and George Ann and I were talking just before they retired. Bill retired, I think, about 4 or 5 months before I did. And we talked about it, and they were talking about going back to Austin, Texas, and of course by that time I think the University of Texas chancellorship job had been spoken about pretty seriously, but you need a place to go, and Charlotte became our home. And I'll tell you what, when you meet a couple late in the not in the waning years of your life, but maybe the last half of your life, okay? And that's been the relationship with Tommy and Patty Norman. It's been rich, and you make friends. All of a sudden, you realize that these people are absolutely wonderful. So thank you for being the heart and soul of this wonderful institution, for having the vision to take care of veterans. People wonder how you got there, and I remind everybody you were Special Forces in Vietnam. Patty's daddy's picture was up there. He landed as I think a first lieutenant on Iwo Jima. Went on to be a brigadier general in the Marine Reserve. So there's a rich history in veterans in that family. That's how the bug got started. So I want to thank you. I'm very proud of it. It's wonderful. You all look wonderful. And for the businesses here, I have to tell you thank you for sponsoring this. And for all the 15 Marine generals that I twisted your arm. But it's been fun to see people that I haven't seen. I see Frank Kearney over there. I talked today about the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Frank was in there in the tank and doing all the stuff with all of us. So it's been great to kind of reunite. There's a guy back in here that we met in just outside of Fallujah, and Chuck, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So here he is. He's 18th Airborne Corps, and he's or 82nd Airborne, and he's turning over command to the Marines, and he's going, I'm really happy that you're here, and I'll see you in a couple of years. And everything went downhill quick from there. So Chuck Schwanek, it's good to see you again. Okay, to my job. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to introduce the keynote speaker. Admiral William H. McRaven is a retired U.S. Navy four-star admiral and the former chancellor of the University of Texas system. You know, when I talked to Bill, when we first started doing the planning, it was just kind of the vision of what it could be and what we thought we wanted it to be. And sooner or later, then the subject of who should be our guest of honor. And I mean, it could have been anybody. It could have been anybody from industry, business, anybody. And Tommy was pretty adamant. He says, you really ought to have a military guest of honor. And I'll tell you what, no kidding, and right from the start, Bill McRaven's name came to mind to me. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. But before I do that, Bill asked me, he just said, listen, Jim, while you're introducing me, will you say something about SEALs? I mean, will you kind of bring in an affinity there, kind of a relationship with Navy SEALs? And there's a couple of other SEALs in the audience here. I saw them. They were wearing the little stuff that tells you that they'll... That's a warning thing. It says, if you touch me, I'll kill you with my bare hands. So they're in the audience, so I got to be careful with what I say. But I said, sure, Bill, I'd be happy to talk about Navy SEALs. And so I sat back and I thought, you know, I need to make this real. I need to make it personal. And so in the early, actually it was the late 1990s, I was running around the Balkans. I was a brand new one-star general. And I was over in Albania, and this is a true story. And unlike the last part of the story, which would be a complete lie. But the first part, and there was a Navy SEAL detachment off a U.S. Navy carrier. In fact, Sam Hellen's in here, and it came off his mute now that I think about it. And we got ourselves in trouble up in the mountains of Albania. And this was in 1998, early 99 time frame. The war in Kosovo was just beginning to bubble, and that's part of the reason why I was over there as a brand new NATO one-star. And we got ambushed. And this Navy SEAL detachment literally saved my life. And I've never forgot it. And so there was about 12 of them, and they were an incredible-looking bunch of young guys. And so that's my relationship began with them. So fast forward, getting back to Bill asking me to talk a little bit about SEALs. So now I'm in Iraq, and so on the second tour, we were out in my headquarters was out at an air base called Al-Assad, out in the western part of the Anbar province, and we had special forces detachments that were on our base. They weren't part of my command, but they were there. And because they were flying their Little Bird helicopters out, I think Frank Kearney was part of 75th Ranger Battalion then, and a regiment. And so they were all part of that. So they were operating out of there. So you saw them all the time. And they're always lifting weights, and they've got those TRX things, and they're hanging upside down off of Connex boxes. And they're like this, and, you know, we're going behind going, who are these guys? So while I'm driving by one day in my Humvee, I look out there, and I see one of these guys, and I go, you're the guy that saved my life in Albania. And we hugged each other out there, did the man hug thing and all this stuff. So we decided we'd stay in touch. By this time, he was a second-class petty officer. And he was a pretty buff guy. So we were talking, and we kind of I'm the commanding general on the base there, so we'd see each other in chow hall and all this stuff. And although they didn't eat the same kind of food I ate, you know, I'm over there eating jelly donuts and stuff, and they're over there eating raw meat and, you know, and stuff like this. And so this guy's name was Ricky. And so we just had it, so we stayed in touch. So I come out of Afghanistan, you know, one thing led to another. I'm visiting Marines in Afghanistan now. And I run into Ricky again. He's now a first-class petty officer in Navy SEALs. I mean, this guy is a stud muffin. And so we were talking, and he was telling me how much that he finally found the girl of his dreams, and that he was going to get married, and that he'd gotten engaged. And I was really happy. And so we're exchanging letters and all this stuff. And then finally one day, I got this letter. And I'd like to read it to you tonight because it really speaks to a lot of the character of a Navy SEAL, kind of who they are, what they stand for, how much can they tolerate. So I'm talking to, we're exchanging, and I said, hey, Ricky, tell me, how's it going? And he just said, well, I've got some bad news, General. He just said, he said, the girl of my dreams and I have kind of broken up. And so he sent me a copy of a letter that she had written to him and he had written back to her, and it goes like this. I'd like to read it to you tonight. Because, again, it talks about that rich character of Navy SEALs. Dear Ricky, I can no longer continue our relationship. The distance between us is too great. Multiple deployments, it's hard on relationships. I must admit that I have cheated on you twice since you've been gone, and that it's not fair to either of us, and I'm very sorry. Please return the picture of me that I sent you. With deep regrets, Becky. So Ricky says to me, he says, well, as you might imagine, sir, he says, I was shaken and hurt, but displaying the kind of resiliency and adaptability that sustains SEALs during times of hardship and adversity. I asked my fellow SEALs for any snapshots that they could spare of their girlfriends, their sisters, their ex-girlfriends, or cousins. In addition to the picture of my now ex-girlfriend, Becky, I included all the other pictures of the pretty girls I had collected from my buddies. There were 57 photos in all that I sent back to Becky along with this note. Dear Becky, I'm sorry, but I can't quite remember who the hell you are. Please take your picture from the pile and send the rest back to me. Take care, Ricky. Back to Bill McRaven. You've got you have his bio in front of you, and I know by now you've read it. Many of you have read a copy of his book. Bonnie and I personally put his kids through college by buying as many books as we could. But honestly, when it came time to make a recommendation to Tommy and Patty, Bill McRaven did come right to mind. And I'm not going to talk about his bio. I'm just going to talk about a little bit of the character of the man that I met. Our paths didn't cross till I was the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Bill was the commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command down in Tampa, Florida. Had all the special operators all around the world. And we were under a lot of pressure in Afghanistan. Things had begun to heat up a little bit in Iraq yet, but they weren't certainly quite what they turned out to be with ISIS and all that, but that came later. But all around the world, whether it be down in the Philippines, down in southern Mindanao with the special operations teams down there, Bill McRaven had them all over the world. And it's one thing to be a Marine fighter pilot and go on a 7-month deployment or a 1-year deployment and come back, and you're home for a year and a half, 2 years, or 3 years. It's another thing if you're a special operator and you go for 4 months, you go, well, that's a piece of cake. You can do that standing on your head. But you turn back and you reset and you go back again and again and again. And all the folks that are in the audience tonight that have been in and out of that command, you understand what I'm talking about. The pressure is incredible. But the work that they do around the world and across our battlefields is amazing to me. I guess I became an aficionado of it. I grew to appreciate what Special Operations Command did for our country. Because those of us that were service chiefs, that were the force providers to the Special Operations Command, there was a price to pay for that. And you're giving up the very best that you have. And there was some reluctance, and we talked about this in the tank. So Bill, I talked to him a little bit about how things happened in the tank today at lunch. By the way, you should have been there. That was your speaking engagement that I took for you at lunch today, by the way. So you owe me. But I talked to him about that, and how this works. And Admiral McRaven would come in and he'd talk about growing Special Operations Command and what they needed because of all the things that the President wanted them to do, all the things the Secretary of Defense wanted them to do. And I remember sitting there smugly thinking, I'll give you whatever you want, Admiral McRaven. And I meant that with all my heart. And usually the Marines are the tightest and the cheapest of all the services. We are. And the Marine generals in here know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'll tell you what, I'd have given Bill McRaven anything that he needed. And that became obvious. That's when our relationship began. I won't get into all the good things that some of the unique things, some of the things the icebergs that we broke open and kind of got programs started and doing. But I judge. We all judge people in a variety of different ways. But I would also say that probably all of us in here judge a leader by what the people below him or her think of them. What do they think of that? It's not enough to just be liked, and it's not enough to be popular, because you've got to be able to make things happen. You've got to be able to make hard decisions, and you've got to be able to take care of your people. And it's the rare person that can do all of that and be deeply loved by those folks that work for him, whether it be an Army Special Ops or Army Ranger, or whether it be a Navy SEAL or an Air Force Special Operator, or whether it be a Marine Special Operations. They love working for him. And so it was easy for me to just look at this guy and go, I admire the hell out of him. He's with his soulmate tonight, Georgianne. They've been together and been married since their days at the University of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my deep honor to introduce a man I admire more than anybody, my good friend Bill McRaven.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim. That's a tough act to follow, and an incredibly gracious introduction. A lot of people have asked me tonight, kind of what brought me to Charlotte, and I said it was easy. Jim Amos asked, and it's that simple. When Jim Amos asks you to do something, and you understand where that comes from, it makes that decision incredibly easy. So, Jim, to you and Bonnie, thanks so very, very much. In our time together, frankly, I marveled at your leadership as well. Your sense of duty, and above all, your love and compassion for those leathernecks that sacrifice so very, very much. And now, watching what you and the other general officers and senior enlisted and incredible citizens of Charlotte are doing for the veterans, I really am truly, truly inspired. And to Tommy and Patty, thanks for hosting this tonight. Richard and Sonia, thanks for escorting us and being my swim buddy. It's been great. And I really am honored to be here tonight at the Veterans Bridge Home, and I thank you for all the great work you do for this incredibly important mission. In March of 1991, I had just returned from 10 months deployed aboard the USS Okinawa during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And during that 10 months and the 6 months that preceded it, I spent all of my time with the sailors of Amphibious Squadron 5 and the Marines of the 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit. They represented everything good and decent about the American military and our nation. They were young men and women who lived duty, honor, and country. They were always faithful to the values that had been instilled in them from the time they joined the military. They weren't perfect. They weren't all choir boys and choir girls. They didn't follow every order, obey every rule, agree with every regulation, but they were strong, incredibly strong in their conviction about the need for service to the nation. They were, after all, volunteers who had agreed to a difficult life at sea, living in a room with 100 of their best friends, racks stacked 4 high, showers that lasted no more than 2 minutes, possessions that could fit into a small space under their bed, and 2 days of liberty after 30 days at sea. And for over a year, I watched these remarkable young men and women work hard, deal with the family separation, and risk their lives for their fellow Americans. I returned home to San Diego in March of 1991. And the following week, my wife, my 2 boys, and my brand new daughter, who was born while I was away, we headed up to Disneyland. It was senior week at Disneyland, and all around the amusement park were thousands of young teenagers. But unlike the young adults I had just spent the last year with, these kids were loud, pushy, unkempt, and seemingly oblivious to what the nation had just been through. And I was horrified. I came home from the park barely able to control my outrage. Where were the respectful, disciplined, orderly youth of America? Where were the polite, well-groomed, hard-working young men and women? What had happened in the 10 months I was gone? How had everything changed? Just weeks before going to Disneyland, one of the local papers had asked me to write an article about my experience during Desert Storm. Now, coming back from Anaheim, I knew exactly what I was going to tell the reader. I was going to rail about the youth of America. I was going to contrast the discipline and sacrifice I saw with the sailors and Marines, with the unruliness and the rudeness of these young teenagers. I sat down at my computer and began to write with a fervor that only comes from an anger down deep. But something happened as I started to write. I realized that the seniors that roamed Disneyland with apparent reckless abandon, with no sense of decorum, were essentially the same kids that were on my deployment just 1 year earlier. They were in their final year of high school, and many of them would raise their hand and join the service. They would magically transform into great young Americans. That transformation would occur because we gave them a noble and honorable mission to defend their fellow citizens and the values we hold dear. We instilled in them good order and discipline so they could act with courage in a time of chaos. We made them responsible for the men and women under their care, and we held them accountable for their actions. In a very short period of time, the true character of these young citizens was brought to light through an understanding of our core values and our service in the military. The article I started to write and the article that I finished were entirely two different pieces. And they reflected a lot about the confusion that I see in society today. When I retired from the military in 2014 and took the job of the Chancellor of the University of Texas, I was often asked what I thought of the millennials. And I think my answer surprised a lot of the folks. I told them that I was the biggest fan the millennials ever had because I had seen them on the battlefield and in the classroom. They were the generation that raised their hand after 9/11 and said, send me. Send me to Iraq. Send me to... Send me to Afghanistan. Send me where the nation needs me so I can be there to care for my brothers and sisters. They are the generation that sacrificed their youth so that others in the nation could carry on with their lives. They're not like my generation. They are better. They don't see color. They have an abiding respect in their differences. They question everything. Why are we going to war? Why is the national debt so high? Why are our laws not helping us? But they don't just question, they act. They sign up to be policemen and the firemen and the teachers and the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who fill our ranks today. And anyone who thinks they are an entitled generation has never seen them packed into a tent in Kandahar or walk across the Paso del Norte bridge from Juarez to El Paso so they can make a better life for their family. Anyone who thinks they are soft has never seen them in a firefight or fighting for the rights of their friends. Anyone who worries about the future of our country and thinks it is in peril has never seen them mobilize when they are outraged by the problems of our society. They are just as courageous, just as dedicated, just as hardworking, and just as patriotic as their parents and grandparents before them. I have no doubt when the history is written, the millennials will be this century's greatest generation. But what of the next generation? How do we ensure that the leaders of today are setting the example for our leaders of tomorrow? For those in the military, it will be easy to find heroes. They are here in abundance. The new recruits will look to men like Dakota Meyer, Leroy Petrie, Mike Murphy, and John Chapman. Women like Ashley White, Rebecca Turpin, Leanne Hester, and Monica Brown. Some who gave all, but all who gave some. But the breadth of society will require more heroes, men and women of character who face the challenges of modern times with integrity and determination, athletes, scholars, artists, doctors, politicians, and captains of industry. Each sector must find its heroes that exemplify the qualities that must help to shape the future of the nation. Unfortunately, today we often see reasonable men and women debating the truth, each convinced of their own moral compass, making a clear path toward the future obscured by egos and righteousness. The great philosopher Aristotle, who lived between 384 and 322 BC, wrote his magnus opus on ethics. providing an ethical framework for Western civilization for the next 2,000 years. His moral, legal, and ethical code was echoed in the works of all great religions. It was the foundation upon which nations were built, but more importantly, it was the foundation upon which nations survived. Aristotle recognized the virtues of character, and he defined human morality as men and women who were, and I quote, courageous, temperate, generous, magnanimous, gentle, friendly, honest, with a sense of shame and a balance of ambition. He also noted that justice and fairness was a moral virtue that needed special discussion. Today, as we struggle with the ugliness of Washington, the uncertainty on the global stage, and the sometimes thin veneer of civilization, we need to take every opportunity to be men and women of good character. We need to set the example for our children and our children's children. We need to recognize that the future of this nation requires hard work every single day, and that nothing is guaranteed. But that if we persevere, if we come together as a nation, if we treat each other with respect, if we care for our veterans and their families, if we continue to set the example for this generation and the generations to come, then the nation will thrive and really be the beacon of hope that the world is looking for. Finally, in his second inaugural address, given soon after the Civil War had ended, Lincoln took on the question of divine providence, asking why God had allowed this terrible war to occur. But after all the pain and suffering, after the cataclysmic failure of government and of American society, Lincoln knew that the strength of the nation would overcome all obstacles, if only we would have malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right. If we would, he said, strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all our nations. I want to thank all of you here tonight for what you have done to care for those who have borne the battle. Because of you, we will achieve a lasting peace among ourselves and among all nations. You have set the example with your charity, your compassion, and your tireless work for those in need. And I thank you so very, very much. Jim, thank you again for inviting me here tonight. This has truly been a special honor for Georgianne and I. Thank you very much.
So, Patty, we talked about earlier during dinner about needing to do an after-action review, AAR. I think one of the things we need to talk about is that we spent way too much time talking about name tags and not nearly enough time about putting an Army captain after a Marine Corps 4-star general and a Navy 4-star admiral. I do not do the Army justice to my brothers and sisters in the Army. I am sorry. Put that at the top of the list, Patty. So I will do my best to follow those. I love you, sir. But honestly, I sat there and listened to both General Amos and Admiral McRaven and thought, what the hell am I doing here? How did we end up here? But sir, at the end of your speech, what resonated with me and why I recognized why I'm here, and I'm not here, I'm just a representation of, I think, the men and women you spoke of, is it's not about just thanking our veterans or feeling sorry for them or taking care of them. It's about setting the expectation of what they really have to give. And all the pain and sweat and tears and effort that you put into leading the young men and women and all of our 25 leaders here and everyone that served in the military did to make them strong men and women, take them from senior week and put them into the bowels of a ship or in the desert in Iraq. That doesn't end just because we take the uniform off. That leadership you've instilled with them, the teamwork you've instilled in them, that continues. And I think Charlotte has done a fantastic job of leveraging that, of recognizing that, thanking our generals for their leadership, and continuing that opportunity to make sure that Adam and Carrie Stead continue to serve our community the way they did when he was in the pilot seat of a Kiowa. So what I've also recognized in the last 7 years that Leanne and I have lived here is Charlotte is full of great leaders, and there's incredible teamwork here. And when I think about the amazing men and women that I worked with and served alongside in the military, and I think of the amazing men and women that I've had the honor to work with and serve alongside here in Charlotte, there are parallels. There's incredible parallels between those two communities, the military and here in Charlotte. And I think that's the real reason we're here tonight, and the real opportunity that these two groups have come together in one room, for the first time in really 7 years. So thank you, General Amos, Bonnie, for making that possible. Thank you, Georgianne, Admiral McRaven, for being here. Thank you, Tommy and Patty, for making that possible. And I have to make one special thank you to both Patty and Miss Joan Zimmerman. I've worked for a lot of generals, colonels, pretty stiff leadership. But there aren't two people that are as passionate, as dedicated, as hardworking, and as we say in the military, you walk the walk, talk the talk. Those two do that. So if you could join me, Patty and Joan Zimmerman. So that's what I think is exciting about tonight. There are parallels, there's connections, there's bridges between these two otherwise disparate communities. Charlotte's not a military town, but when you look at those pictures that rolled through as we ate, or as you see the pictures on the way out of the Hall of Honor, you'll see men and women that did great things in the military, but I think even more importantly have done great things here in Charlotte. Incredible folks like Robert Zimmerman, like John Belk. We all know John Belk as the mayor, the amazing, successful businessman, the philanthropist, MC's father. But before that, he was Captain Belk, United States Army. He was a leader in the military. It's incredible to see that investment in our young men and women start to pay off here in a local community. And Veterans Bridge Home and myself and our team, we are just honored to be a part of that. I guarantee that every person that is on those pictures and every person in this room, just as the Amos has mentioned, can point to people like Tommy and Patty and can show to who extended that hand, who was that bridge to help them leave the military service, whether it was 4 years or 40 years, to make sure that they were successful. Sir, the favorite part of your speech, of course, the famous speech that I'm sure you didn't intend to become so famous, was point number 2. And if you hadn't read it, you will. If you haven't seen it, you will. But if you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help, and to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide them. I heard that years ago, not long after you had given the speech, and it resonated with me because what we were trying to build 4 years ago, 7 years ago, what we've been continuing and trying to build, and that leadership and putting paddles in the water and continuing to paddle alongside one another is really what makes, I think, this community special. What I'd like to do is introduce a video that gives you a sense of all the people that put a paddle in the water on behalf of Adam and Carrie Stead, starting with Dr. Armanda, through the Normans, and to many of you in this room, which was one of just the first families, which has now been thousands of others. Please join me in watching this video.
Adam Stead and Patrick Benson flew lead in a team of 2 Kiowa Warrior helicopters. When the enemy opened fire, Adam dove his Kiowa without hesitation between the enemy fighters and the medevac. The enemy shifted their fire. Both pilots were instantly hit, Patrick through the leg, Adam in the head.
I was pretty much cognitively absent for like the first 2-3 months after injury, and then there was a slow, gradual progression of awareness after that.
The single biggest worry an officer has is personnel lost, personnel wounded. How do we get our people back unscathed?
I shipped out when I was 18 years old in 1997, and it was a great opportunity to see why we serve, why it's so important for us to say we want freedom, but you have to stand up and defend it. When I got to Charlotte, knowing that after this tour I would be retiring, I needed therapy. 20 years career, you see a lot. I needed help re-engaging in the community, learning how to be a civilian. I hadn't been that since I was 17 years old.
There are 20 million veterans in the United States, 200,000 in Greater Charlotte.
Veteran unemployment is twice the national average.
Suicide among veterans is twice as high as other Americans.
They're the best of the best. But when they come home, when they return home, they want to get engaged and give back to the community.
Yeah, there's those that came out. Yeah. Right.
We were introduced to Tommy Norman through a network of friends. So we went and met Tommy and Patty for one weekend. We loved Charlotte at that time, and so we kept coming back. Going way back, I guess, back to like the home search. They also helped with job. They introduced us to some friends, helped us build our friend network. There's wonderful people.
Adam landed a job at Bank of America. He's working on his master's at Queen's University. Cohen is at Country Day School, and the family has a new addition too.
After a while, we realized that the needs were so diversified and it was growing, and Tommy and I just thought we need to do something bigger. What we wanted to do is we wanted to connect them. So that's why we call ourselves Veterans Bridge Home.
Now, 7 years after meeting the Steads, Veterans Bridge Home addresses the big picture with job fairs like this one at the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Veterans, they're going to pass through what I call the veil. I think there's a little bit of a genuine fear of just moving cold turkey into a community that you don't know. And you know what that means? That means all they need is a helping hand. Somebody will reach out, kind of grab them, and say, come on, let me see if I can help you.
To make a community stronger, you need everyone in a community. We work to make sure that veterans find the right employment opportunities, so they find the right local, public, private, nonprofit services. And we also host about a dozen events a month so veterans can build the social connections they need and that peer support that existed while we were in uniform.
Charlotte has their arms wide open and welcomes them and wants to be a part of their journey and wants them to succeed.
One of the greatest things that people get from those activities is the camaraderie. I mean, they're like family.
7 years later, the Normans, through Veterans Bridge Home and through their continued support of this mission, they brought over 5,000 veterans and their families into Charlotte, making it one of the most veteran-friendly communities in the country.
Veterans Bridge Home can connect you to services, to healthcare, to jobs, but I think most importantly to the community, just to have friends, a network of people that you have common bonds with. I think that's what we were missing. That's what a lot of military families are missing.
Being surrounded by a network of other veterans that have been through the same thing, when you reach out, you realize you don't have to do this on your own because we're all veterans and we're going to support you. If I didn't have Veterans Bridge Home with me, it'd be dark. It'd be really dark.
I think it's exciting. I think it's relevant. I think it's the best on the market. I think it's probably the best in the country, and I'm very honored to even play a small part of it.
Join us in strengthening our community. Join us in serving those who served our country. Veterans Bridge Home.
So as Tommy mentioned, as that video shows, it takes a village, right? It takes a team. I'd wager to guess, Dr. Armanda, that you probably have never heard of Queen's University before this evening, let alone the difference between Queen's or Wingate or UNC Charlotte or any other great institutions of higher education we have here. But I guarantee that nobody here can do brain surgery the way Dr. Armanda can, right? What Adam needed then is not necessarily what Adam needs now. None of us are that way. What we need today is going to be different than what we need tomorrow. Everyone has a responsibility at different moments, at different points in time in our veterans' lives to step up and be that person. Whether it's as intense and serious as what Dr. Armanda did, or it's as easy as helping Adam navigate which MBA program is the best in Charlotte. I won't get into that. But the importance is building a team, knowing when to use the right person, the right resource, the right team at the right time. Each person plays a vital role. And what we've learned since serving the Stead family and continuing to is that there are many lessons and many connections, and you need more and more teammates to build these veterans and their families to make them stronger. The Stead family was family one. One family turned into four families. The Steads, the McKinneys, the Costellos, and the Cooks were four families that stepped into this community and said, this is where we want to make our home, just like General Amos and Bonnie did. And the Normans, thankfully, stepped up and said, we'll help connect you. And people like Joan, folks like Bank of America stepped up and were those connections. But what we found out is each of them had different needs, different goals, different strengths, different ideas of what right looked like. Kurt on the left, or my left, your right, drives stock cars, right? Lane sells real estate. These guys were Green Berets and Marines, a far cry from what they're doing now. That's why it takes a village. That's why you need a team, because there isn't necessarily one answer for each family. Over the years, we've extended our network, and we've found people like Bill Crowder, who not only hires veterans, who not only is a successful businessman and builds great buildings and roads and solar farms, but you may not know he also mentors student veterans at Wingate University, a school that he doesn't technically, I think, have a degree from, right, sir? And then you have folks like Dina Diorio, who've not only invested in our organization and other great critical need organizations for veterans, but also leads and oversees one of the, I think, the best veteran service organization in the entire country. Her team with Janine McGee and their 13 benefits officers are unparalleled. Brandon Shelton, the fastest talking, high speed, gave me a hard time earlier, guy in this room, never says no anytime we connect a transitioning service member to him. He always is ready to give personal and professional advice. No matter how busy he is with his young daughters, no matter how busy he is with his venture capital firm, he always makes time for those individuals. That employment support, that services, that social connectivity, that makes a difference in people's lives. That's this community stepping up, and they're just three great examples. We've been able to build over the last 7 years a team of teams. We have over 200 companies have committed to hiring veterans, many of you here tonight. We have over 75 nonprofits and government agencies that make sure that those critical individual needs are met. And we have a network of over 5,000 veterans who are willing to step up the way Brandon does. Each one of those is a different resource. Each one of those is a different need. That combined arms approach is necessary. You can't apply the same thing to the same need every day. We couldn't do this alone. Those first 4 families have taught us a lot and have shaped this community more than I think they may ever realize. But since 2011, as Art mentioned, we've had the opportunity and the honor to serve over 5,000 families. These are just a few of the veterans who have come through our doors, raised their hand, and they need something. They've reached out and extended, say, I want to be more. I want to continue to serve. I want to be as successful as I was. I want to take what the Admiral McRavens and General Amoses instilled in me and apply it in my new home. But they don't know how. That's not what we ask our generals to do. That's not what we ask our Department of Defense to do. That's our responsibility. It's Charlotte's responsibility. Just this week, we had 4 families reach out. I'm sure my team would tell me it's more than that, but I know I saw 4 families. A Vietnam veteran who has knee surgery next week who can't afford the special dietary restrictive foods that needed the financial assistance to get those foods so his knee surgery was more successful. A female Air National Guardsman whose civilian contract is ending in 2 months, and she needs employment support. We have a post-9/11 Army veteran, single dad living in a home who just found out he has an eviction notice, not because he didn't pay his rent, not because he's not a good tenant, because the owner sold the building and the new owner doesn't want to have a tenant. And just yesterday, an Army spouse walked into our office who 6 months ago was at a community 5K and met our clinical director, Dr. Nicole French, and thought, oh, that's nice, we just got here, we're great, everything's great. Walked into our office and said, my husband and I are not great. We need some help. Those are 4 new families. Not too dissimilar than the 4 families we saw 7 years ago. I guarantee next week there'll be 4 more families. So the opportunity we have, the responsibility we have, is to not let down Admiral McRaven, not let down General Amos, make sure that we do continue to care for the men and women that they cared for, because I guarantee you, that our veterans will be the difference that Admiral McRaven mentioned. They will be what our community needs. Oh, thanks. They will be the leaders that this community needs. They will be the neighbors that we all want. They will overcome the adversity that is presented to them. And they will make this community stronger. Many of you are already part of this team, and I thank you. Many of you stepped up and said, you will hire veterans, you will connect with veterans, and you will serve veterans. Thank you. Our job as a community and our job at Veterans Bridge Home is to help follow through on that commitment. If you're not sure how, let us know. Much like the general officers in this room, Veterans Bridge Home's role is to lead, connect, and serve. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to our distinguished guests, and I promise we'll fulfill that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blake. And Blake made the case. I think he made the case. We have an amazing opportunity. We have an opportunity as a community to support this work. All of us have an opportunity to be partners in this work. And as you've heard, there's a need to support our veterans. Our veterans are not these needy people. These are veterans who need our support to become active members of our community. And I want all of us to have the opportunity to be those partners. So I want you to pull out your, we have 2 things left to do. This is one of them. So you have your program here. In the back of your program, I want you to look in the back of the program. There is an opportunity for you to pledge support to Veterans Bridge Home. Many of you have already pledged support by buying a table, and we really appreciate that. Some of you have the opportunity now to add your support to that. So pull out this card, and before you leave tonight, we hope that you will become a partner with Veterans Bridge Home. Now, the other thing that we have to do is something really fun. We are going to have also, now that you have your programs in your hand, I also want you to look at the live auction items that we have. And I'm going to invite Richard Worrell to the stage. Richard, where are you? Come on up. There's Richard. There he is. Richard's coming up here. Richard is our auctioneer. Now, I want you to look at what these items are. Oh, my Lord. They are military-themed experiences we have to bid on. Come on up. They are airfare and accommodations for 2 couples for 2 nights in New Orleans with a private tour of the National World War II Museum. That's one. Accommodations for 3 couples in Aspen, Colorado on the Aspen Slope near where the Army's 10th Mountain Division trained before they left for World War II. That's another one. An evening for 8 lucky people to have dinner with the Amoses at their home here on Lake Wylie. That'd be fun. And airfare and accommodations in Washington, D.C. for 2 couples for 2 nights. The trip includes VIP seating at the Marine Corps Sunset Parade and a private tour of the Pentagon. I hear that it is really going to be some hot bidding for that one. So be ready. Richard, the microphone is yours. I'm going to be a spotter.
All right, good evening. Good evening. Are we at a funeral parlor or the Star Spangled Gala for Veterans Bridge Home? Good evening. All right, let's get some energy here. All right, here we go. I am not a hero, but I get to lead heroes every day. And there are 2 heroes in this room that have returned from deployment this week. I want to recognize Air Force Staff Sergeant Carlos Arias. Who returned this week from Turkey. And I want to recognize Chris LaRock, Army Captain, just returned from South Korea. I am not a hero, but I get to lead heroes every day, and I want to recognize my colleagues at Northwestern Mutual who have served the United States military to please stand. Here we go, guys. Come on. Don't be bashful. Admiral McRaven, you are one of the greatest American heroes in the United States history. On a lighter note of the impact that you make, my son, 10 years old, 5th grade, unscheduled parent-teacher conference. The key words are unscheduled. His assignment from my wife Alana and I were to read your book and write us a book report. And there have been no more unscheduled parent-teacher conferences since that duty. Thank you for being here with us tonight. To say I am over my head following General Amos and Admiral McRaven is a complete understatement, but we're going to have fun here. I've never been an auctioneer. I'm not the Mona Lisa Vito of auctioneers. But we're going to have fun, and we're going to raise a lot of money for Bridge Home tonight. Here we go. Okay, thank you. Here we go. All right. Thank you for that. The veterans, the 5,000 veterans of Charlotte Bridge Home that they have served cannot speak to you tonight, but if they could, here's what they would say to each one of you. I've been homeless, and Charlotte Bridge Home helped get me on my feet. I've suffered from PTSD, and Charlotte Bridge Home helped me get me on my feet. I've suffered from a disability, and the Veterans Bridge Home has helped me get me on my feet. I was not employed. Veterans Bridge Home was able to find me a job. The work that they do, the 14 staff members every day, is unbelievable, and we've got to lift them up tonight by reaching deep We're going to have an altar call. We've got 4 incredible events. And let's get ready. Are we ready? All right, here we go. All right. Our first event. Here we go. We are going to the World War II Museum in the Big Easy, New Orleans, Louisiana. 4 people, 2 nights hotel, airfare donated by American Airlines. That is unbelievable. General Amos's friend, very good friend, is the director of the World War II Museum. This is in the Big Easy. We're going to start all our bids tonight at $3,000. We'll open the bids up at $3,000. We have $3,000. Can we get $3,000 for New Orleans? Here we go. Here we go. Thank you, sir. Can we go $3,500? $3,500. We're looking for $3,500. $3,500 for our veterans. We got to reach deep. We got to reach deep, folks. We try 32. Okay. 3,200 in the back. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Can we get 3,500? Here we go. 3,500. 3,500 in the back. All right, we're going to $4,000. $4,000 for Veterans Bridge Home. $4,000. Can we get $4,000? World War II Museum. They've got a B-17 from World War II. We've got $4,000 in the back. Let's give it up for that hard charger right there. Do we have 4,500? Do we have 4,500? We've got $4,000. All in and happy? Sold for $4,000. Congratulations to the wonderful lady in the white outfit in the back. Okay, all I can say about this next destination, it is not the 10th Mountain Division home. It is Aspen, Colorado. We have 2 commanders of the 10th Mountain Division in this room tonight. That is not in Aspen, Colorado. This is the lifestyle of the rich and famous. This is by the Little Nell, by the gondola, ski in, ski out. This is an unbelievable opportunity. 3 bedrooms, 6 people, 1 week. It's got to be after February 15th in the year of our Lord 2019. This is the home of Patty and Tommy Norman when they're not in Charlotte. This is an unbelievable place. The view, the vistas, the Rockies, the greatest snow in the world. We're going to start this bidding at $3,000. Do I have $3,000? This is a $10,000 week. I got $3,000 here. Do I have $3,500 right here? I've got $3,500 right here. Do I have $4,000? $4,000 right here. Do I have $4,500? $4,500. This is a $5,000. This is a $10,000 week. $5,000. $5,000 to this outstanding young lady in the front row. Woo! Let's give it up for her right now. $5,000. Do I have $5,500? We've got $6,000. Do we have $7,000? $7,000. Woo! In the words of Ric Flair, woo! 7,000. Do we have 7,500? 7,500. All right, let's not have deep pockets and short fingers, folks. Do we have 7,500? Do we have 7,500? All in and happy, $7,000 for the Aspen week. Congratulations to our winner. Okay, thank you so much. Awesome, awesome job. Okay, our next incredible experience is dinner with General Amos at Lake Wylie for 8 people. This can be any time. This is a river cruise. This is an incredible dinner experience. And let me just say a few words about General Amos. You're not allowed to hide or leave the room while we're describing this. General Amos is the 35th Commandant of the Marine Corps. Hoorah! And I love being in a room where there are more Marine general officers than Army. This is unbelievable. And I am authorized that if we don't get enough bids on this, that the Army officers will be doing push-ups on the red carpet and the Marines will supervise. Okay, here we go. So, Army people, we got to bid this thing up. All right, he's the 35th Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's the first Marine Corps aviator to be the Commandant. Now listen to this. 69 men in the history of the United States have been a 4-star general with the U.S. Marine Corps. 51 men in the history of the United States have been a 4-star general on active duty. This is unbelievable. This is an incredible trip. This is unbelievable, okay? But the best part of the trip is not General Amos, it's his wife Bonnie. And you're going to hear a lot of war stories at this event, and one of those war stories may be when the general stopped in the quick stop at Bessemer City and ran into one of her old boyfriends from Bessemer City High School, and you'll learn that story, and I cannot reveal it tonight, but it is part of the program. So, I'm not sure if General Amos looks like Robert Wagner or Robert Redford, but he is a movie star. He's an American hero. He's the 35th Commandant of the Marine Corps. Let's get some energy around this. We're going to open the bid up at $4,000. Do we have 4,000? We got 4,000 right there. 4,500. Wow, I got an eager beaver that's volunteering. Sir, $5,000 from the Admiral. What is your bid, young lady? 5,500. Do we have 6,000? 6,000. Outstanding.
We're ignoring the side of the room.
Our left flank. Our left flank. We can't throw around nickels like they're manhole covers. Let's go, people. There we go. What's your bid? 6,500. So we've got 6,500 on the left flank. Do we have 7,000? 7,000 right here. Do we have 8? Do we have an 8? Do we have any 8s? 8,000. 8,000. The auctioneer bids 8,000. Here we go. Do we have 10,000? Do we have 10,000? We're going from 8 to 10, Maura. Yes, that's correct. That's how Marines do it. We're looking for 9,000. 9,000. 9,000. Jim Crowder. $10,000. $10,000. Here we go. Outstanding. Outstanding. 11,000. Here we go. Here we go. 11,000. Do we have 12? Do we have 12? $12,000. Can we have Jim and Bonnie stand up? We gotta raise a little more. Come on, let's stand up. Here we go. 13,000. 12,500. 12,500. Blake corrected me. 12,500. Is that our bid? Do we have 13,000? 13,000. Woo! $13,000. 13,500. 13,500. Outstanding. Outstanding. Here we go. Veterans Bridge Home. Do we have 14,000? 14,000. 14,000. $14,000. Please stand up, young lady. There we go. Hey-oh. We've got 14,500. We've got 14,500. Do we have 15,000? 15,000. Veterans Bridge Home. 15,000. 35th Commandant of the Marine Corps. $15,000. Right here. Do we have 16? 15,500. We've got 15,500. We're not going anywhere, folks. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Do we have 16,000? Fifth, 16,000 MK pylon right there. Woo! All right. 16,500, holy. Do we have 17,000 MK? 17,000. 17,000 going once. Woo! Okay, General, we may have to make it. We have 18,000? Show me the money, young lady. Show me the money. I saw that hand go up. Okay, General, can we break this apart and have 2 visits to Lake Wylie with you and Bonnie? To be with you, but really to be with Bonnie. Can we do 2? What's the bid at right now?
How about one night for 15,000 T-bones?
We're looking for 2, sir. We're looking for 2. We got to, this is all about Veterans Bridge Home. What's our bid at right now? Do we have 17,000 over here? Can we do 2 Can we do 2 trips at 18,000? Can we do 2? That gives us 36,000. 2 trips at 18,000. Do we have 18,000? We were just at 17. Let me help you. Let me help you. We're at 17. We got 17,500. Can we do 2 trips at 17? 17,000. 17,000 going once. I'm trying to do 34,000, Blake. We're trying to high gross here. We got 17,500 over here. Is that correct? 2 dinners for $17,000. Do we have 17? Do we have 2 at 17? Let's do 3 at 17. There's a lot of money on the table here. We're taking our time with this. We are taking our time. We got 17,000 and we got 17,000. All in and happy? All in and happy? Sold. we've got one more. We've got one more adventure. We've got one more adventure. I don't know if we can top 34,000. All right, here we go. Our last adventure. This can be on a Monday through a Friday. It's for 4 people. 2 rooms, airfare for everyone, donated by American Airlines. We don't have accommodations set up yet, but we are not going to put you up at La Quinta. This is going to be a special location. General Amos has recommended that you come in on a Friday because we have the Marine Corps band. We've got a Marine Corps parade, and this is going to be a deeply religious experience. Our last auction item is a VIP tour set up by General Amos of the United States Pentagon. The United States Pentagon. 28,000 soldiers, sailors, Marines, and DOD, we're taking pictures, work in this incredible building every day. Holy cow. All right, we've got to top what we just did, okay? So we've got an unbelievable experience at the United States Pentagon, VIP. We're going to start the bidding at $4,000. Do we have $4,000? VIP, we've got 4,000. Joan Zimmerman, do we have 5? 5,000. Do we have 6? Show me 6. 6,000. 7,000. $7,000. 8,000. Show me 8. Show me 8. We got a long way to go, folks. The night is young. 8,000. I see it. I see him. 9,000. Do we have 9,000? $9,000 for Veterans Bridge Home. Do we have 10? Let's make it an even 5-figure number. 10,000. We need 10,000. 10,000 here. Outstanding. Outstanding. Let's give it up for in the back. $10,000. We're looking for 11. Left side, left flank. Those nickels are getting like manhole covers over here. Come on, we got to reach deep. We're having an altar call. $11,000, Veterans Bridge Home. 11,000. There we go. $11,000. Do we have 12? Do we have 12? Here we go. The night is young. We've got $11,000. Do we have 12? $11,000. All in and happy? Sold for $11,000. Okay. Thank you all for coming. That was outstanding. Give our bidders a warm applause. Woo! I think we just got 50,000 more.
Fantastic. Unbelievable. Thank you all so very much for those bids. My friends, thank you all so very much for being here and for coming. I have a couple of things to tell you before you walk out. We have a special gift for you. They are signed copies of Admiral McRaven's book. Make Your Bed will be available at the tables outside of the room, so please grab one. They're going to be fabulous. It's a really good book. Veterans Bridge Home staff will be collecting those donations and pledge cards. They're in the back of the program, so please, if you're not one of those, now if you were one of those bidders who's going to be writing a big old check, we're going to give you a pass. Everybody else, not so much. We really need your help. And then those who have the Hall of Honors posters may take them home. And the table hosts, please take home those beautiful centerpieces. Thank you so much for being here at the inaugural Stars Spangled Gala. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. See you next year.